It was my first day of high school. The sun was shining brightly, and the air felt warm and fresh. I was both nervous and excited. I walked into the classroom with my backpack and books, looking around at all the new faces. Some students were talking in small groups, while others were sitting quietly. Then, the door opened, and someone walked in. Everyone became silent. I turned to see who it was. A tall man in a white shirt and black pants stood at the door. He had a kind smile and bright eyes that made him look like he was always happy. He carried a folder and a cup of coffee. "Good morning, class," he said. His voice was calm and friendly. "My name is Mr. Carter, and I will be your English teacher this year." I felt my cheeks get warm. Mr. Carter had a special way of speaking. It was clear and soft, but it made everyone listen. I couldn't stop staring at him. "Please take out your notebooks," he said. "We're going to start with a little writing exercise." I quickly opened my notebook and picked up my pen. Mr. Carter wrote something on the board. "What do you hope to achieve this year? Take your time," he said. "Write a short paragraph about your goals for this year. It can be anything: improving your English, making new friends, or learning something new." I thought for a moment and started writing. My heart was still racing, but I tried to focus. After the class, I stayed in my seat, pretending to organize my books. Mr. Carter was talking to another student near the teacher's desk. I watched as he laughed and nodded, encouraging the student with his kind words. When he looked my way, I quickly looked down. I hoped he didn't notice me staring. "Is everything okay?" Mr. Carter asked as he walked toward me. "Yes, everything is fine," I said, trying to sound calm. "Good. If you ever need help with anything, feel free to ask," he said with a warm smile. "Thank you, Mr. Carter," I replied, my voice almost a whisper. As the days went by, I found myself looking forward to English class more than any other subject. Mr. Carter made every lesson fun and interesting. He would tell us stories, show us pictures, and even play games to help us learn. One day, he asked us to write about someone who inspires us. Without thinking too much, I started writing about him. Mr. Carter inspires me because he is kind and patient. He listens to everyone and makes learning fun. I want to be like him someday, I wrote. When it was time to hand in our work, I hesitated. Would he think it was strange? But then I reminded myself that it was just an assignment. The next day, Mr. Carter returned our papers. When he gave me mine, I noticed a small note at the bottom. "Thank you for your kind words. It means a lot to me. Keep up the great work." I felt my heart skip a beat. He had read my essay and appreciated it. As weeks turned into months, I found myself daydreaming about Mr. Carter. I knew it was just a silly crush, but I couldn't help it. He was everything I admired in a person: smart, kind, and confident. One afternoon, after class, I decided to stay behind again. "Mr. Carter, can I ask you something?" "Of course," he said, putting down his folder. "How did you become a teacher?" I asked, hoping to learn more about him. He smiled. "Well, I always loved helping people. I wanted to make a difference in the lives of young students. Teaching seemed like the perfect way to do that." "That's amazing," I said, feeling inspired. "Thank you," he replied. "And what about you? What do you want to do in the future?" "I'm not sure yet," I admitted, "but I want to do something meaningful, like you." Mr. Carter nodded. "That's a great goal. I'm sure you will find your path." After our conversation, I started to think more seriously about my future. Mr. Carter's words stayed in my mind. "I'm sure you will find your path." I began paying more attention in class and working harder on my assignments. I wanted to make him proud. Every time he complimented my work or gave me a kind smile, it felt like I was flying. But at the same time, I knew I had to keep my feelings a secret. He was my teacher, and I was just a student. It wasn't something I could share with anyone, not even my closest friends. One day, Mr. Carter announced a special project. "For the next month, we will be working on a creative writing project," he said. "You can write a short story, a poem, or even a play. Be creative and have fun with it." I was excited. Writing had always been my favorite way to express myself. I decided to write a story about a young person who admires someone but has to keep their feelings hidden. Every evening, I sat at my desk, pouring my thoughts and emotions into the story. It wasn't just about my feelings for Mr. Carter. It was also about learning to accept that some things are not meant to be. When the deadline arrived, I handed in my story with a mix of pride and nervousness. I wondered what Mr. Carter would think when he read it. A few days later, he returned everyone's projects, but mine wasn't in the pile. I felt a pang of worry. Did he not like it? After class, he called me to his desk. "Your story was very moving," he said, holding my paper in his hand. It felt personal. "Did you write it from your own experience?" I hesitated. My heart was pounding. Should I tell him the truth? "Well," I said slowly, "it's inspired by things I've felt." He nodded thoughtfully. "It's a beautiful piece of writing. You have real talent." "Thank you," I said, feeling both relieved and nervous. As the weeks went on, I started to feel more at peace with my feelings. I realized that my admiration for Mr. Carter wasn't just a crush. It was also about respecting him as a person and a teacher. One day, during lunch, I saw him sitting under a tree, reading a book. I gathered my courage and walked over. "Hi, Mr. Carter," I said. "Hello," he said, looking up with a smile. "How are you?" "I am good. I just wanted to say thank you," I said. "For what?" he asked, looking curious. "For being such a great teacher," I replied. "You've inspired me to work harder and believe in myself." Mr. Carter's face lit up. "That means a lot to me. Thank you for telling me." We talked for a little while about books, life, and dreams. It felt nice, like talking to a friend. The school year passed quickly, and soon it was time for summer break. On the last day of school, Mr. Carter gave everyone a small card with a personal note. When I opened mine, it said, "Dear Sarah, you have a bright future ahead of you. Keep writing and dreaming big. I am proud of how much you've grown this year. Best wishes, Mr. Carter." I smiled as I read his words. I knew I would always remember him, not just as my teacher, but as someone who made a difference in my life. Years later, as I looked back on my high school days, I realized that my feelings for Mr. Carter had taught me something important. Admiration can be a powerful thing. It can inspire you to be better, to dream bigger, and to work harder. Though my secret crush had faded over time, the lessons I learned from Mr. Carter stayed with me forever.